We touched on it a little bit. LeBron's fourth quarter storm, because I won't say it was the Lakers' fourth quarter storm. It was LeBron and LeBron alone. Crazy. He's knocking on the door of 40,000 points. Is there anyone that's taking the GOAT conversation away from him? What's going on there? Like, is it time to give the man his title for GOAT? Or we already call him the king. What's to y'all?
Uh,
Well,
this is where I feel like I stand on this at this point, right? I I haven't made my official decision, so y'all not getting nothing out of me. But I think the question that can be posed, what are we know everything about Jordan, right? But in all honesty, in all legit honesty, numbers wise, longevity wise, the the level he's played at these, like consecutively. We've seen nothing like this. We have literally seen nothing like it and probably will not. I don't know if we're going to see another player who's even the closest person to 40,000 points is KD, and
he
he's
had
only
29.
he's at about 29,000. I don't think KD got 11,000 left in him before he retired. Respectfully.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't
Yeah.
think he's gonna play long enough to get to 40,000. Because KD is in what, year 16? Does KD have 5 more years? I mean, he could, right? He could, but it's yet to be seen. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's what
Yeah.
LeBron is doing is, and at this point, whether you want to look at the call it padding stats, call it whatever. I'm not even looking at the stats for real. I'm just looking at the fact that when he's on the floor, he is no less than a top 2, 3 at the very, very least best player on the floor at all times. And 90% of the time, he is the best player on the floor at all times at 39 in year 21.
It's nuts.
It's ridiculous.
It's insane.
And so what's I think a lot of people try to be like, oh, the finals record, that's BS. All the things that people try to say that keep Bron out of being number one is minuscule. And I'm like, we're looking at the 40,000 points.
I feel like
40,000?
we're listening to Steve give his answer on who's the GOAT.
I never
That's
get it.
Hey,
hey,
I'm
the
fresh off a video.
no, the people want to know. Like,
I can't decide yet.
you're
I'm
telling
telling the people why LeBron has a compelling argument and why anybody that says he is the GOAT, I will not argue you. But
okay.
Qualls did not give his answer of GOAT.
I'm thinking the way that you're breaking it down is you low key giving us your answer without trying to give us your answer.
I mean, I don't disagree with anybody who says that. I don't disagree.
You made a really great argument. I mean, so I've been adamant about it being Jordan, but everything you said, it makes sense, and I'm like, okay, well,
So what was your main, like, what's your main thing for Jordan? Like, what's your argument for Jordan that just takes it over the top? Because a lot is just, it's give or take. They're pretty much the same. But what for you gave Jordan that like extra, inch to say, he's still the GOAT.
anytime Jordan stepped on the floor, he was the overwhelming pick to win. That's what it is for me. If LeBron steps on the floor against a top team in the West, we're questioning it. And I feel like Jordan instilled more of that fear factor in his opponents. I think people want to take it to LeBron. Whether or not they're successful is different. People want to take it to LeBron, but I feel like when it came to Jordan, it was almost in the back of their mind that they knew this is a tall task. This is a feat. Like, this is going to take a lot. That's the difference maker for me. Like you said, it's not about stats, in my opinion, but just as the leader of the team, when it comes to your opponents, that's that sort of thing. That's the difference.
Damn.
Yeah. Anything special you want to add?
Sorry, I was watching what might be the next GOAT just do some incredible things, and I will ask that at a later date. But healthy Wemby, oh my goodness, I just saw him eat up like just it's terrible. Shay's getting blocked left and right by this man right now. I digress. 40,000 for Legoat. He has that nickname that is in the repertoire already. That's I don't know. It's pretty I don't know. I'm fresh off a video off Facebook of Jordan not using his left hand. Y'all know who I'm talking about, surely. Whoever's just watching all these old clips of 80s basketball and just cooking these men. So I think right now it's hard not for me to be in the mindset that no one is going to be what LeBron James is to the game. Like he's doing something at such a high level that like even if Jordan had those 3 years in the middle, statistically, like with like how he ended his career, we saw that he was a mere mortal. Like if LeBron does this into his two sons being into the league and putting up like still near dominant stats, you can't tell me that this man is not the GOAT. If he does that as well, like, and also if the Lakers make, I mean, did they not make the conference finals last year and lose to the champions? Like, if they beat Denver, does he not get one more? Like, he's just been where the comp was crazy. He's been in the most golden era age of basketball in terms of like dominant players. Like MJ had some dogs to go against, but Bron has had to go against. But Steph, don't even give me started. He had Steph. He had KD join Steph to beat this guy. Like like in Cleveland, he wasn't even given the full hand that he could have been played, and he was dragging the lifeless corpse of his teammates to final series where he was getting stomped out by Tim Duncan the first time, and he was like, "Oh, well, this is what an organization looks like." So of course he's going to leave to Miami so he can try and put together a team that can give him what Jordan was afforded. Because in Chicago they gave that man fucking pardon my language, everything. It's just like I've seen too much of this man do some incredible things. Granted, there's been flaws, there's been bumps along the road. Ray Allen definitely saved not his career, but people say, oh, without Ray Allen, who is he? It's like if they don't get that one, they still probably run it back next year. And who knows if he goes back to Cleveland and just decides to stick it out with D Wade and company and get it done again after Timmy and all them retire. I don't know. It's hard because MJ was so good for so long. It's so dominant at his time. So
let me
you're
okay.
splitting
Go ahead.
hairs. You're splitting hairs.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Real quick. Gail, that's a really great point. Jordan's era was good. It was really good, right?
He said it. They were doing coke in the locker room. Like these boys were getting
not that era, the
then.
later era.
No, they were still getting wild back then.
But that's not the point. Miguel, that's not the point. Anyway,
they're getting wild now, but those ones are out of the league are also still trying to fight for a spot strongly. Continue.
Yes. But no, Bron's era, Bron has had to play through so many different eras and so many different great teams that trying to say who he lost to is just, okay, so the only thing that Bron proved was that he's not immortal. Of course he should lose to Steph and KD, in all honesty. Like that's supposed to happen. Like
he was getting beat up. He's getting beat up as like a teenager against one of the roughest teams that has came out of the Eastern Conference in the Detroit Pistons, only to be rivaled by the Indiana Pacers of their time. And we all know how that went when they faced each other. That was his introduction to the league.
Let alone, mind you, led a Cavs team. Well, I can name players from the team, but a lot of other people probably
Daniel Boobie Gibson.
Boobie Gibson, Ilgauskas, all them people. Yes, we can name
Carlos Boozer.
But took them to
Darius Miles
finals
before then.
Took them to a finals, got swept by Timmy and them, right? Because Timmy and them is Timmy and them. You know what I'm saying? But like, what what he's done over the course of his career, if you take the losses out, right? If you take the finals losses, if you take because all these things are human, all these things happen in any great career. Like, why is Jordan's career talked about so much, or what's a huge part of Jordan's career? Him getting over the hump in Detroit. Like him getting past the bad boys makes for Jordan's story, right?
Yeah, like,
So we can't take away what makes you that. So for
but
Bron, he just he had some breaks in
but
between some of his stretches. And that's really all it came down to. But when you look at what he's doing number wise, his career stats, like, stats aren't a big thing, but when was the last time the man averaged less than 25 points?
like
When's the last time the man averaged less than 6 or 7 assists?
Yeah, I'm gonna be messy here. I'm gonna be
he was
messy.
assist leader at year 18.
That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna be messy here though. So y'all are bringing up the competition, right?
Mhm.
One of the biggest things during his runs to the finals when he was in the East was the East is non-existent.
It was.
So what competition would have kept him from getting to all of those finals?
Uh, the best franchise that lived for 20 years out in the West, and Tim Duncan and company. The next best team that came out of the West, the dynasty of the Golden State Warriors. That
No,
also added.
I'm saying in terms of his path to the finals, because a lot of people are like 8 straight finals trips, da 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 da, or however many straight there were. Who was stopping him in the East? Now, when it comes to the West, that's a different beast.
Yeah.
And now that he's in the West, we don't see as much success as he had endured in the East.
This is true, but even last year, year 19, he loses to the defending champ, Denver Nuggets. Like, what, the 2 years before, I think those are his first years where he showed he was mortal when he got to LA and he was injured. He also then gets a ring in LA in the midst
Right.
of being like 35. What happened before that? I
Great
mean, yeah,
team. That's a great team that they had that won in the bubble, though. That's a
yeah, that's his best team
and
ever.
the White.
That's his.
Rondo's your point guard.
But I mean, sorry, the Heat, of course. But I mean, like, in terms of like in that time at his age, like that was like they put some pieces together. But
Like
it's
if
like,
it weren't for I'm sorry, not to cut you off, but
yeah,
if it weren't for his move to Miami, are we still talking about Braun the same way?
no, because
Absolutely
that
not.
man's not putting a team around him. We saw he dangled the keys to Melo above his head for like 10 years and then gave him who was his best addition in Cleveland? Was it Carlos Boozer? What, like, who really did the second time? It was Kevin Love. That was the best addition that they ever gave him. And sorry, it was Kyrie Irving because they were forced to draft him when LeBron left. Like,
I will say, late GM is not great. I will say that
No,
LeBron
no.
putting his own team together has not
I,
has
I
not
mean,
been the
he
formula.
went to Miami. I mean, granted, the teams that he led GM, they got a ring. He was never led GM in Cleveland. They didn't
But
pay anyone
he didn't
around
lay
him.
GM Miami either, though. I don't think that was
He
him.
forced
No,
his
Like,
I
hand.
mean, he orchestrated. He was like, oh, D Wade kind of pulled strings to get guys there. But then you even go to Cleveland, yeah, like it was a bit of a mess. They still get a ring for Cleveland, which was never gotten one ever. And then he led GMs in LA saying, I want AD, and they get a ring too. So it's like, even though it's like they didn't produce like 4 or 5 like we thought, it's just like he got what those franchises were looking for, which were
But he goes back.
contenders.
It's like his career has what am I trying to say here? Okay. So his career has had some very beneficial things happen during his duration elsewhere. So for example, when he goes to Miami and then Cleveland drafts Kyrie and you see how good Kyrie is as a guard and now you go and join that. You know what I mean? So it's like and I'm not taking away from anything that he's done, but let's look at the bigger picture. Like he didn't do all of this in Cleveland when it was solely him. He had people around him, he had that help. And so did Jordan. He had people around him too. But I want to make sure we look at the entire picture because this GOAT conversation is
Yeah,
very
yeah.
interesting. And I love the different avenues you can go down. We can talk about this all day. But when
so
it comes to
yeah.
that, like
So I say, so with all the points, because I don't think there's any point that was invalid, right? So like, what does the question ultimately come down to? Like, obviously, it's gonna be preference, right? Like, everybody's not gonna agree, but what
What
does it
you've seen.
Like what is it? So what you've seen, right?
And that's the only reason I'm able to say what I've said, because I've seen more of Braun. I was able to take in more data. Jordan, granted, we've been like,
Yeah.
he is the most accessible player that there is, and we've seen highlights, we've seen all that, but then also you see the flaws too that people point out. That's how you get,
Mhm.
people being more critical, which there's going to be videos of Braun, obviously, in 20 years where it's like, look at this, man, look at it. Well, what is he doing? Because everyone has plays that are going to look bad under a microscope in the NBA, but I feel like there's more flaws that you could find in someone's personal game, or like maybe what defenses look like in, years past.
This is where I'm willing to sit on this and for probably forever, because y'all still not getting my answer out of me. But
We know.
We do know in your heart of hearts.
It's one of those where it's like, it hurts to say, and I won't say.
Bron
It's on there.
is the Bron is the better player, right? All things considered, better player, better overall player, better physical, specimen in the sense of like what he can do, like 6'8", move the way he can, all of that.
Jordan's
Bron,
a better competitor.
better winner.
Mhm.
He's a better winner. I don't want to take away Bron's competitiveness, because just because it looks different doesn't mean it hasn't been there. Bron has that dog in him. He has that fire. It just looks, he's just not an asshole for real. At least not as much as Jordan was. But Jordan is the better winner, because I think, Ashley, when you talk about Jordan just never being like, you're always going to put money on Jordan. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter situation. Don't matter. Like, the only reason Jordan lost was because the man played a third of a season
Mhm.
and didn't have the legs. That's the only reason. In all honesty, when you look back at 95, it's like, yeah, if he had actually had the legs or came back a month earlier, who knows if he was actually conditioned. Like, they might have got it in 95 too, because we never
Mhm.
seen them play the Rockets. But if he gets there, who's exactly counting against Jordan? So he's the better winner. But I think when it's all said and done, you can't argue that Bron is the better athlete. And I think the biggest thing with that is, I'll give Bron IQ over Jordan for sure. And that's
He's
not a
always making
slight
the
to
right
Jordan
play.
at all. But
Yeah.
Bron just has IQ in a game that I don't think we've seen ever. So I guess when it comes down to those two, do you care about skill, and do you care about, what somebody brings athletically on top of their accomplishments? Or do you really feel like the winning aspect of it trumps everything? And if so, it makes sense why you hear people say 6-0, and that's why Jordan is one. Or you hear people say for Bron, well, look at the numbers. And it's like, well, we can't argue numbers. We can't argue longevity. And it's not like he hasn't won or hasn't played at a high clip for a long period of time. So I feel like that's the only way to really break it down. At that point, you just choose, well, which one matters to you most, and that more than likely is going to be your pick. You know what I'm saying? But that's where I sit.
No, yeah, that was. I love conversations like that, especially with people that know what they're talking about. This is great basketball conversation to take in.